So this is Tony from Cage Confessions, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by PFL Bantamweight Dean Garnett. Dean, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm excited about getting to Ireland and just getting into the fight week sort of preparations now.
Yeah, and we're just over 2 weeks away. It's on a Thursday, strangely enough. Does that
Yeah,
make does that sort of mix things up for you? I guess you're kind of used to fighting on a Saturday and weigh-ins and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. Does that play a
yeah.
part or not really?
It- It's confusing in my head when I want to do my last session, when
Yeah.
I'm cutting carbs, when I'm doing this, when I'm doing that. So, no, it's a mad one, but I also like the idea of being back home Friday and having a full weekend with my kids. So
Yeah.
it's got its pros and its cons.
Indeed. Yeah, that means you're straight back into dad mode though. You can't, put them off.
So I want, mate.
Good, good. And speaking of going to Ireland, have you fought in Ireland before?
Yeah, I fought on Cage Warriors years ago against Martin Sheridan. Got a heel hook in the first minute. So
Right.
it's always been good times for me fighting over there.
Yeah, excellent. And you're fighting against an undefeated Kieran Clark. What do you make of Kieran as an opponent, sort of breaking him down?
Yeah, he's a very good opponent. He's deserving of his 10-0 record. He's got some decent names on there. But I think I'm probably the toughest fight he's had to date. I think we're very similar. I think, he's solid on the ground, but he can fight everywhere. He's got good wrestling. His striking's decent enough as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking I've got a slight edge everywhere, and maybe that little bit of extra high quality experience, maybe having a couple of knockouts on my record and stuff is gonna give me that bit of an edge. But I'm open anyway.
Yeah. And when you was started your career, you went up to I think it was 7-0 undefeated before you sort of lost your first fight. And as a fighter, how and lots of people come at this differently, but when you've got that sort of monkey off your back of losing that undefeated streak, does it sort of take some of the pressure off of you as a fighter, do you feel?
Yeah, I don't know. I never really felt the pressure of being undefeated, to be honest. I think the first loss I had was in Chechnya when I was 8 now, actually, and it's one of them things. I think for 99.99% of guys, it's part of the sport. There are some
Yeah.
guys who never taste defeat, but in most cases, it's part of the game, and I think how you respond's more important than never being beaten. We're all probably going to lose. A couple of fights ago, I handed Jan Jablowski his first loss
Yeah.
with a third round guillotine, so it doesn't phase me that he's undefeated. Doesn't change how I look at the fight at all. Doesn't make no difference to how I'm preparing. I think if I get my game plan right and I execute, my skills on the night, then I'll be taking a zo.
Yeah, and I think it'll be actually looking at your record and whether Tapology is 100% correct or not, but I think he's the fifth undefeated fight that you'll be fighting, and you've taken 4-0 so far. So if that's anything to go by, it should be a good night in
Yeah,
Belfast.
yeah, no, I'll take it, mate. I'll win any way I can.
Yeah.
I'm definitely prepared for a 3-round fight. I think he's a very resilient. He'd be hard to finish, but if I finish him, great. But if I go in there with that mentality that it's going to be a tough 3 rounds, I'm going to have to dig deep. I'm going to have to want it more than him. Then on the night, anything else is a bonus.
Yeah, and given your experience, I'm sure this isn't the first time you're walking into enemy territory. Does that sort of phase you at all? It doesn't really play a part at all when
I
you're
think at
when
this
you're in there.
point, I feel like I prefer it. I feel
Right.
like if last fight was in France. I feel
Yeah.
like that was cut short by a referee issue. But that was a hostile crowd. Doesn't phase me one bit. I'd probably prefer it. Yeah.
Yeah, gets you a bit more up for it, and yeah, willing
Yeah.
to sort of stick it to them, I guess. Yeah, and just kind of
Go on.
touching without sort of harping on the last fight too much. Obviously, it ended in a disappointing fashion. Does that sort of give you even more drive this time to go out there and sort of prove yourself?
Yeah, I guess so because obviously I wanted to be ranked in the top 10 for
Yeah,
PFL Bantamweight division. Here and is at 7, I think, or 8. So, a win here puts me above both guys who've got wins over me on paper in Lewis and Barris lately. So, more just knowing I'm at probably the last 5, 6 fights of my career now. I want big fights. I want to fight in the States. I want to fight guys who are in title contention, and I want to do the most I can with the next 2 years. So yeah, I think that was a really annoying way to lose a fight, feeling like you're in the middle of a fight and the ref's pulling you off because you're being punched in the body.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just didn't sit well with me. But got to just take that into this next one and use the fire and make sure I get the win, get the W, whether it's ugly, whether it's with a submission, whether I land a nice KO, however it comes, I really don't care. I just want to get that win, get his ranking, and get a quick turnaround and get a big fight booked.
Yeah, and you've just touched on there, sort of saying you've probably got 5 or 6 fights left. Do you foresee yourself sort of playing out your career in the PFL? Is that sort of dream
I've
scenario?
signed a 6 fight deal, so if I can
Yeah,
complete that, then I believe that'll be me. Be hanging the gloves up after that, I imagine. I'm heavily involved with the sport at different levels as a coach, as an educator, do lots of community-based stuff, working. I've got a BTEC program. So I've got enough things going on in MMA that lights a fire in my belly and I'm excited about. So it's not like I'm clinging on.
yeah,
Um, I'm going to be sticking around no matter what happens. So for me, I'm quite excited about the next chapter. But I want to really enjoy these last 5 or 6 fights and make a bit of a statement before I exit the professional competition side of things.
yeah. And is there any sort of bucket list places in the world you'd like to fight that you haven't had? I mean, you've fought in quite a few different countries and stuff. Is there any particular places that sort of really appeal to you that you'd like to tick off before you call it a career?
Yeah, I'd love to fight in the US. I've never done that. Maybe a fight in Dubai would be nice as well if
Yeah,
things change with the current conflict over there. So yeah, Dubai in America would be absolutely lovely, and then maybe even one or two closer to home out of
yeah,
these next 5 or 6 fights, and be a nice way to go out, and who knows, get a couple of good wins on the board, and you're right in title contention on one of the biggest shows in the world. So I'm excited about what's to come, and I'm gutted that I didn't pick up that European title, but there's still time, there's still opportunity,
yeah,
and I'm still performing really well in the gym despite being 37.
yeah.
So
Absolutely. And Kieran, I think he's ranked number 8 in the bantamweight division. So a win over him should, propel you into that top 10. And then, who knows from there, you're probably only a couple of fights away from potentially getting into title talks at the very least, I guess.
yeah, and that's it. I want to get 2 more fights in this year after Kieran. So 2027 could really be a run at the belt on PFL. That'd be a dream.
Yeah.
But
And
ultimately, I just want to enjoy it, and at
yeah.
the minute, I'm really enjoying the whole process.
Yeah, and how have you? Because obviously you've been fighting for quite a while now. So I think sort of back to 2010 is when you first started. I actually interviewed you on the Bellator, one of the Bellator London cards, many moons ago. So it's quite nice. I think that was probably about 10 years ago now. Looking back, that was
Yeah,
I think it was Daly and Lima card, wasn't it, at the
yeah.
O2? But yeah, how have you sort of continued to fight and continue to enjoy, find yourself enjoying competing at this sort of level?
I feel like I'm quite multifaceted in the sport. I've got a degree in coaching development. I'm the founder of Aspire Combat Sports Academy.
Yeah,
I'm the founder of a program called the Combat Sports College, which is a post-16 government-funded BTEC and MMA program. I'm currently trying to develop some alternative provision programs for kids with different needs. So I think having lots of different areas of interest in the sport
yeah,
has given me that flexibility to jump in and out. I've had injuries in the past. There's been, political issues with the pandemic and things when it's been hard to get fights. So
yeah,
I've always been able to stay on the horse because, it for me it's a long career, it's a multifaceted career.
yeah,
And I suppose I've enjoyed not having all that pressure on fighting alone. Some guys, feel a world on the shoulders and then they stop fighting and they're like, what do we do now? Whereas I never set up that way. I always wanted a long career in the industry. I knew I loved the sport. I knew I didn't want to go and get a job I didn't enjoy. So as long as I'm in and around the sport, I'm happy getting out of bed every morning and going to work.
yeah. And how rewarding is it training those kids? And you must get a hell of a lot from helping the youngsters come, just to get off the streets and do something that will, in the long term help them out.
Mate, get the pleasure of, like, we have a really strong fundamental kids program from age 3 up, from,
Yeah,
playing games and developing their physical literacy, to working with kids with higher needs who are at risk of exploitation, to working with some bright prospects like Mohammed Mokhiev, Liam McCracken, Marlon Jones, to name a few. Just the whole thing for me is just gives me, just lights a fire in my belly, and I do get a lot of reward, a lot of, like, job satisfaction, if that's what you want to call it.
yeah,
And you know what? It's just nice to be part of a community that does something meaningful, especially for, obviously there's girls at the gym as well who do exceptionally well, but I feel like, it's a tough place being a man in the modern world, and it's nice to have something that, provides a space and an outlet for young men as well. So, yeah, I absolutely love what I do, mate, honestly. My mind's like a pinball machine
yeah.
with the whole sport and everything to do with it.
Yeah, well, it's good to see that you've thought about that because as you mentioned earlier, some other fighters will just think of the fights coming up and not worry about what's life after fighting. And when all you've done is fight for your whole life, it's hard then to go back out into the real world and get a job doing something else, isn't it? So it's good to. How long is that something you sort of thought about when you started, or was that something you sort of learned from others? When
No,
did
it's just
when did all
something
that
that
come
was just
about?
innate in me. First session I did, I knew I wanted to be a fighter. Second session, I was like, yeah, you want to be a fighter, but it's a cutthroat industry. Why don't you get yourself set up in the industry properly? And within a few years, I completed a coaching development degree, opened a business within the sport, and I've just constantly tried to evolve as a man, and as a sort of martial artist and a coach and a leader, and just try and create opportunity and pathways, different pathways from, novice to elite, or child to, regular participation, or education to employability. I just kind of love the journey MMA can take someone on, and, like, the amount of self-development. The kids sit and do chemistry in a classroom, but they never really get a chance to apply it. Whereas I think that when you learn MMA as a youngster,
Yeah,
you go and apply it in that session. So I think, it's such a great way for engaging young people. It's
yeah.
one of the best mechanisms I've ever seen for, not for every young person, but if it aligns with you, it's such a powerful tool for engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, how do you feel MMA has changed since when you started to now? Have you noticed being in the sport a big change? I guess you can speak from a UK perspective, but wondered if you've got
Yeah,
any thoughts on that bigger.
I think attitudes have changed, obviously, towards it. It's a lot more mainstream.
Yeah,
People have a much better perception of it. We see more and more of it now in things like education, like what I'm doing. But in the same breath, on the macrocosm, I feel like it's getting watered down by entertainment as well, which what concerns me.
right.
The Mostar Lerone fight is a good example. I just think now that they're placing too much emphasis on entertainment, where it's killing the actual reality of the sport. Like, Mohammed Mokhiev, a great example, 7-0 in the UFC,
Yeah,
and now he's not fighting in the UFC when really he should have had a title shot. And there's a good chance he's the best flyweight in the world, but we'll never know because of political reasons or fighting style reasons or whatever it is. But, you wouldn't imagine being a football supporter and the FA or the Premier League awarding the title to the team who came second because they played better football.
yeah,
Like, no one would stand for it. But unfortunately, we're in the entertainment business, and it's overpowering the sense of sport and what it means to be the best and be an athlete. If guys are winning within the rules, why are they being penalised because they don't have a certain type of persona, or, certain hairstyle or whatever it is that they're looking for? Um, Obviously exciting fights as well, I get it. But at the end of the day, it's very hard to get in there and win. Never mind be exciting. We all want to put exciting fights on, but at the same time, we're all trying to provide and win fights. So, obviously, I had an exciting fight with Lewis McGillen. If I do lose, I'd like to lose like that. But at
yeah.
the end of the day, we're here to win, and we're here to get win bonuses and move up the rankings. So I think it's becoming a tough and tougher challenge for guys to be successful now based on merit alone.
So have you found that hard, sort of sticking to your guns and just being yourself, or have you ever had sort of people trying to influence the way you approach fighting, or at least how you come
I
across?
haven't, no, I haven't personally, but I've seen it obviously at the UFC level.
Yeah,
Not something I've ever experienced with PFL,
yeah,
but certainly at the UFC level, it's becoming more and more obvious that it's almost ceremonial, the ranking system, or the who gets a title shot. It's all about, what your favours like with the top brasses. And you look at Mofsar Lerone there, still not getting a title shot. I think Lerone won the fight, a draw at best.
yeah,
Mofsar gets the win somehow and then still doesn't get a title shot anyway by the looks of it. So it's becoming a bit of a pantomime, which is a shame.
yeah,
I'm all for guys who are exciting fights, obviously, but at the same time, I'm also a purist and I want to see the best fight the best. And if some fighting styles are a bit less exciting than others, then tough shit, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? There'll always be exciting fights on cards,
yeah,
but let's find out who the best is at winning within the rules.
yeah.
And if
That's
not, change the rules. Don't penalise guys for winning within the rules.
Yeah. Well, it is mixed martial arts at the end of the day, isn't it? So there's going to be different styles, and
Yeah.
sometimes they might not be as on paper, as attractive as others. But yeah, to your point, if you've won 19, 20 in a row, you're probably due a title shot at some stage. Well, you'd imagine so anyway. But
Overdue a title shot. You've
yeah,
got Diego Lopez getting two title shots back to back when it wasn't even a close fight the
mhm,
first time round. And you've got guys like Lerone and Mofsar who are ready to step in and have earned their shot. But for whatever popularity reasons or whatever it is, makes no sense to me at this point. Like, I can't really understand it, but seems more like it's just who's got personal favour
yeah.
with the matchmakers and the UFC top bosses.
Absolutely. And just touching on PFL, obviously there's been some changes at the top. Just wondered how, or if at all, that you've noticed any change in the organisation with John taking
No,
over.
I haven't got a bad word to say about PFL. Feel like I've got a really good relationship with the guys who work there. I feel like I've always been looked after. I feel like I've always been treated fairly. I hold nothing against them for what happened in the final with the referee. Um, so yeah, nothing but good things to say about them. And I feel like they value fighters and they go above and beyond. And I hope that continues because right now, you look at someone like UFC, I feel like they're really exploiting the fighters. So I hope PFL can come in and shake that up a bit and continue to do what they're doing and have an ethical, moral approach to the sport where they put the sport first and the athletes first.
Yeah, and from the outside looking in, it really feels as if PFL in Europe is on fire, whereas in comparison to the events they put on in the States, just wondered if you had a view on that, whether you agreed with that, or and if you did, what you think it is about the European, they've been in France, they've been in England, and they just always seem to be a bigger event.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the PFL Global sort of merged with Europe now, hence there being no European tournament. I think it's a good move.
Yeah,
You've got a lot of European fighters who are at world level, so it makes sense. Obviously, still developing the MENA and the Africa regions, which I think is a good idea as well, because they're a bit less developed than the European scene is. But so many strong European fighters on the roster, it's no surprise to me. I think that's what it is, to be honest. They've got a good collection of European fighters. Just look, shame about Paul Hughes for this card, but
yeah,
look how easy they were able to slot some Irish superstars in like Dara Kelly and Reece McKee, and now it's a really strong card still. So they've got depth in the European roster, and it's showing. And I'm glad to be part of that roster right now, and I'm excited about getting some fights globally, but also a couple more big shows on the European scene are also on the horizon. Every European show I've done with PFL's been a fantastic experience.
yeah. And recently, in an interview, John Martin mentioned that there is a potential at rebranding the PFL, and even sort of potentially flirted with the idea of bringing it back to Bellator. What do you think of that, or do you think that PFL as a brand is sort of a good enough brand to stand on its own legs?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the PFL brand and the Professional Fighters League. I think that's what they are. It's very professional. I think, there's no need to rebrand it. Maybe Bellator just had a longer standing name, so, that familiarity with the global market, something they want to get back to, but not something I've seen personally, mate. So, yeah, wouldn't really know what to say on that,
Yeah,
but
no, no.
at the end of the day,
It
mate,
was just a comment that he had on an
yeah.
interview recently. I just sort of didn't know if you'd heard any rumours or rumblings of
The
anything.
the
But
end of the day, the roster will be the same, the backroom staff will be the same, the managers
yeah,
will be the same, and they're what make the show special for me. So as long as all them things remain the same, I don't really care what the logo looks like.
yeah, absolutely. And just as well, you touched on the tournament format, and it looks as if that's been removed. Did you actually enjoy being part of the tournament format, or are you quite glad that that's now been
Um, I'm quite glad I'm not in a tournament at the minute, mate. It was tough rolling from fight to fight with like 9, 10 weeks between fights. I cook a fair bit away for the bantamweight, and
yeah,
I like my food, and I'd like to have 4 or 5 weeks off before I'm back into camp again and fully recover. So
yeah,
definitely a very tough format, very challenging, fighting 3, 4 times in 6 months. So I'm quite happy I'm out of the tournament system, if I'm honest.
yeah. And how is it cutting down to then? And this is no insult whatsoever, but as you get older, obviously cutting weight is presumably harder and harder. How is it now cutting down to bantamweight? As you mentioned, you're sort of 37 years old now, so I imagine it's a lot harder than you know when you started in 2010.
Yeah, I mean, yeah and no, because I'm a bit more disciplined. I'm on track nicely at
Right.
the
So
minute.
you're a bit more
My last,
experienced in doing it. Yeah.
yeah, me last two weight cuts have been two of the smoothest I've done. My quarter final against Thomas Granville wasn't a very good one. I was quite heavy for that one, but that was because they moved the show date and my head fell off. I'd just done a 10-week camp and then the show got put back. Unfortunate. And I kind of didn't keep the weight down and let myself too much to do with the last 2 weeks. But I still won that fight, dominated the first 2 rounds and had a bad third round. But at the end of the day, the next two against Jan Chaplowski, I was out of my seat going into the third round, telling him to stand up, and I think he planned for me to get tired. And I think that made his head fall off when he saw I was fresh as a daisy. So, a good weight cut for me. I can do 4 kilos in the last 24 hours, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
On a bad one, I can do six, and it does make a difference on your performance.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And last question, Dean, just for anyone who's not seen Dean Garnett fight before, what can they expect come the 16th of April at PFL Belfast?
I mean, I'm someone who's got a lot of experience of being in fights that aren't the most exciting, and I've been in one of PFL's best ever fights. So, I just expect to see someone who's coming to fight for every single millimeter. I really want to get a win. I'm fighting a hometown guy. I'm going to be quite aggressive. I've got a nice game plan for this fight, and the judging criteria is damage, and that's going to be me. My main goal to inflict as much damage as possible on my opponents and get my hand raised.